The town of Moonhaven sat quietly between the sea and the hills. Most maps no longer showed it. Most travelers passed without noticing it. And most people, if they had ever heard its name at all, assumed it belonged to some old story. Yet Moonhaven was real, very real. Its cobblestone streets curved gently beside the harbor. Its weathered rooftops glowed silver beneath the moon. Its gardens overflowed with lavender and climbing roses. Its clocks ticked softly. Its lanterns glowed warmly. And every evening, just after sunset, the townspeople would pause whatever they were doing and look toward the sky. It had been their tradition for generations, a simple tradition, a peaceful one. They watched the stars appear, one by one, night after night, year after year, for as long as anyone could remember. But something had changed. The stars were disappearing. Not all at once, not dramatically, simply fewer. A star would vanish one evening, then another a week later, then two more the following month. The changes were subtle enough that visitors rarely noticed, but the people of Moonhaven noticed. They always noticed, especially Elias. Elias lived alone in a small cottage overlooking the sea. His home sat atop a grassy bluff at the edge of town. The windows faced west, toward the ocean, toward the horizon, toward the stars. At 29 years old, Elias had spent most of his life studying the night sky. Not as a scientist, not as an astronomer, simply as someone who loved it. Every evening he climbed a narrow staircase leading to the roof of his cottage. There he sat beside an old brass telescope and watched. The stars had become his friends, his companions, his stories. He knew their patterns, their movements, their names, and he knew with absolute certainty that fewer of them appeared now than before. Tonight was no different. A cool breeze drifted in from the sea. Waves whispered against distant rocks. Moonhaven's lanterns glowed below. The town looked peaceful, sleepy, comfortable. Yet Elias couldn't shake the feeling that something important was slipping away. He adjusted the telescope, studied a familiar section of sky, then frowned. Another one was missing. A tiny silver star near the eastern horizon. Gone. He checked again, and again. Nothing. Only darkness remained. The realization settled heavily upon him. Not fear, not panic, something quieter, sadness, because stars weren't supposed to disappear, at least not like this. A knock interrupted his thoughts, soft, unexpected. Elias climbed down from the rooftop and opened his front door. An elderly woman stood outside, Mrs. Willow, Moonhaven's baker. Her silver hair danced gently in the wind. She carried a basket covered with a cloth. The smell of fresh bread drifted upward. Couldn't sleep? She asked faintly. Not tonight. Mrs. Willow nodded knowingly. She handed him the basket. Neither could I. Inside rested a warm loaf of cinnamon bread, fresh from the oven. The scent immediately made the world feel a little gentler, a little kinder. They sat together on the porch overlooking the sea. Neither spoke for a while. Sometimes silence is its own conversation. Eventually, Mrs. Willow glanced toward the sky. Her smile faded. Another one? Elias nodded. The baker sighed. I thought so. The waves rolled quietly below. Far across the harbor, a lighthouse beam swept slowly across the water. Back and forth. Back and forth. Steady. Faithful. Like it always had. Do you remember? Mrs. Willow asked softly. When the sky looked crowded? Elias smiled. I do. When every inch was filled with stars. He nodded. The memory felt warm, comforting. Childhood evenings spent lying in grassy fields, counting constellations, imagining distant worlds, believing anything was possible. The baker looked thoughtful. My grandmother used to say every star belonged to a dream. Elias laughed softly. That's a beautiful thought. It is. The old woman gazed toward the horizon. Perhaps that's why I miss them. Neither spoke after that. The night carried their thoughts away.
The sea whispered. The stars shimmered. And somewhere far above, another mystery waited. The next morning arrived quietly. Golden sunlight spilled across Moonhaven's rooftops. Seagulls circled above the harbor. Fishing boats drifted lazily across the water. The town awoke slowly, as it always did. Elias walked through the market square carrying a notebook. He greeted familiar faces. The florist arranging bouquets. The fisherman repairing nets. The clockmaker winding old clocks. Everyone seemed normal, comfortable. Yet beneath every smile lingered the same question. Had another star vanished?
The center of town stood Moonhaven's oldest building, a library. Small, round, built from pale stone. Its windows reflected the morning sun, and above its entrance hung a sign, Moonhaven Archive. If answers existed anywhere, Elias suspected they would be found there. The library smelled of paper, dust, wood polish, and time. Thousands of books lined the shelves, some new, some centuries old. At the back of the building sat the librarian, Mr. Finch, a tall man with silver spectacles and endless patience. He looked up as Elias entered. "You've come about the stars." Elias blinked. Was it that obvious? Mr. Finch smiled. Only the 7th visitor this week. The librarian gestured toward a table. Several old books already rested there, waiting, prepared, as though he had expected this conversation. Perhaps he had. Elias sat, opened the first volume. Ancient star charts filled the pages, maps of skies from decades ago, generations ago, centuries ago. His eyes widened. There were more stars, many more. Not imagined, not exaggerated, documented, recorded, confirmed. The difference was undeniable. Mr. Finch folded his hands. "I've been comparing records." Elias looked up, and the librarian hesitated, then answered quietly. "They've been disappearing for nearly 50 years. The room fell silent. 50 years. Far longer than anyone realized. Far longer than anyone had suspected. The realization felt enormous, like discovering a crack in a mountain. Something ancient, something hidden, something important. Mr. Finch reached beneath the desk and withdrew a small wooden box, dark oak, worn by age. Its brass latch glimmered softly. The librarian placed it carefully upon the table. "I found this in the archives yesterday." Elias stared. "What is it?" Mr. Finch smiled. "A mystery." Slowly he opened the lid. Inside rested a folded piece of parchment, yellowed with age. The paper crackled softly as Elias unfolded it. At first it appeared blank, completely empty. Then sunlight touched the page. Silver ink emerged. Hidden words revealed themselves. A message, written long ago. A message meant for someone, perhaps for him. The first line read, "To the last stargazer of Moonhaven." Elias felt a chill run through him. Not fear, wonder. The room seemed quieter suddenly. The air felt different. The world itself seemed to pause, as though an old story had just opened its first page. And somewhere beyond the sea, beyond the horizon, beyond the disappearing stars, something had been waiting. Waiting for someone to begin. Waiting for someone to notice. Waiting for the last stargazer. And at last, the journey had begun. Morning sunlight lingered inside the Moonhaven archive. Dust motes drifted through beams of gold. The ancient letter rested upon the wooden table, silent, waiting. Elias read the first line again. "To the last stargazer of Moonhaven." The words felt impossible, too specific, too deliberate, as though someone had written them knowing this exact moment would arrive. Mr. Finch adjusted his spectacles. "I've never seen ink like that." Elias nodded absent-mindedly. His eyes remained fixed on the parchment. More words slowly appeared beneath the first sentence, not all at once, gradually, like stars emerging after sunset. The silver letters shimmered softly. "When the final stars begin to fade, seek the traveler who arrives without a shadow." The room fell quiet. Mr. Finch blinked. "A traveler?" Elias looked up. "Without a shadow?" Neither understood, yet both felt the same thing. This was not a riddle meant to confuse. It was a clue, a direction, a beginning. Outside, a distant bell rang from the harbor. The sound drifted through the library's open windows, gentle, familiar, ordinary. Yet somehow it seemed important, as though the town itself were nudging them forward. Mr. Finch folded the parchment carefully. "I think," he said, "you should visit the Harbor Inn." Elias frowned. "Why?" The librarian smiled. "Because travelers always arrive there first." The Harbor Inn stood at the edge of the docks, a worn stone building overlooking the sea. Its windows glowed amber even during daylight.
Flower boxes overflowed beneath every cell. The scent of fresh tea drifted through the air. Inside, travelers rested. Sailors shared stories. Locals gathered for lunch. And the owner, Mrs. Harper, seemed to know everything about everyone. If a stranger had arrived in Moonhaven, she would know. Elias pushed open the door. A small brass bell chimed overhead. Warmth greeted him instantly. The inn felt cozy, comfortable, the sort of place where every chair seemed to invite conversation. Mrs. Harper stood behind the counter arranging cups. She smiled the moment
She saw him. Elias. Good morning, he approached. Has anyone unusual arrived recently? The innkeeper laughed softly. In Moonhaven, everyone is unusual. He smiled despite himself. You know what I mean. Mrs. Harper became thoughtful, then nodded. Actually, her voice lowered slightly. There is someone. A curious feeling stirred within him. The innkeeper glanced toward a corner table. Near the window sat a solitary traveler, a young woman, perhaps 30 years old, perhaps younger. Travelers often seem difficult to age. She wore a long dark blue coat, weathered boots, and a silver pendant shaped like a star. A leather satchel rested beside her chair. Several maps lay spread across the table. The woman stared toward the sea beyond the glass, lost in thought. Elias noticed something strange immediately. Sunlight poured through the window. It illuminated the table, the chair, the floor. Yet no shadow appeared beneath her, not even a faint one. His breath caught. The letter. The traveler who arrives without a shadow. Mrs. Harper watched his expression. You see it too. Elias nodded slowly. The woman turned. Their eyes met. And for a brief moment, it felt as though she had been expecting him. She smiled, not surprised, not curious, simply pleased, as though a long-awaited meeting had finally arrived. Elias approached cautiously. May I sit? The traveler gestured toward the empty chair. Of course. Her voice carried the calm confidence of someone accustomed to long journeys. Elias sat. For a moment, neither spoke. The harbor shimmered beyond the window. Fishing boats drifted across sunlight-covered water. Everything felt ordinary, except this meeting. This felt important. The woman folded one of her maps. You've read the letter. Elias stared. The question wasn't a guess. It was certainty. How do you know about it? She smiled gently. Because I've been looking for it. The answer only deepened the mystery. Elias glanced toward the maps. Old maps, very old. Their edges were worn, their surfaces marked with handwritten notes, symbols, constellations, locations. Many places he had never heard of. The woman extended a hand. My name is Mira. Elias. I know. That response should have felt unsettling, yet somehow it didn't. Instead, it felt familiar, as though they were both following the same story, one that had begun long before either of them arrived. Mira carefully unfolded the largest map. The paper spread across the table. Immediately, Elias noticed something unusual. The map did not show roads, or towns, or oceans. It showed stars. Thousands of them. Entire constellations. Silver lines connecting distant points of light. Yet many spaces stood empty, blank, dark, missing, just like the sky above Moonhaven. Mira pointed toward one section. This map changes. Elias frowned. Changes? She nodded. The stars disappear from it whenever they disappear from the sky. He studied the parchment carefully. The missing regions seemed concentrated, not random, not scattered, gathering toward a single location, a destination, a pattern. Mira traced the route with her finger. The path led west, far beyond the sea, toward a place no ordinary map contained. A place labeled only with 3 words, the Silent Horizon. The name seemed to shimmer upon the page. Ancient, forgotten, important. Elias looked up. What is the Silent Horizon? Mira's expression softened. That's what I've spent 5 years trying to discover. Outside, clouds drifted slowly across the sky. The harbor remained peaceful, yet a feeling of anticipation settled between them. The story was growing larger, deeper, older. Mira carefully rolled the map closed, then reached into her satchel. From within, she removed something unexpected. A brass compass. Small, elegant, ancient. Its surface gleamed softly. Strange symbols surrounded the dial, unlike any compass Elias had ever seen. The needle moved constantly, not toward north, toward something else, something distant, something hidden. Mira placed it on the table. The needle spun once, twice, then stopped, pointing directly toward Elias. He blinked. The traveler smiled. It only does that around dreamers. The inn seemed suddenly quieter. The sounds of conversation faded into the background. The world narrowed to the compass, the map, the mystery, and the stars. Mira folded her hands. Tell me something. Elias nodded. When was the first star you noticed disappear? The question surprised him. He thought carefully, then remembered. A cold autumn evening, 3 years earlier. One tiny star near the eastern sky. Gone. Nothing dramatic, nothing extraordinary, just missing. Until now. Mira listened carefully, then sighed. The same year it began everywhere else. A chill moved through him. Everywhere else. The traveler nodded. The stars aren't only disappearing above Moonhaven. The words hung in the air. Heavy. Important. The mystery was larger than he imagined. Far larger. Not a town, not a region. The world. The realization left him speechless. For a moment, both sat quietly. watching sunlight dance upon the harbor, watching boats drift across the water, watching a perfectly ordinary day continue, while beneath it all, something extraordinary was unfolding. Finally, Mira stood. She gathered her maps, secured her satchel, and looked toward the sea. The next clue was waiting. Elias rose as well. Where? The traveler smiled. A knowing smile. The sort carried by those who have followed mysteries for a very long time. She pointed toward the cliffs beyond town, toward an ancient path overlooking the ocean. There. The wind stirred outside. Seagulls wheeled overhead. The sea sparkled beneath the afternoon sun. And somewhere beyond the cliffs, beyond the horizon, beyond the fading stars, another piece of the story waited patiently, waiting to be found, waiting to be remembered, waiting for the last stargazer. The afternoon drifted slowly across Moonhaven. Golden sunlight sparkled upon the harbor. Fishing boats rocked gently in the water. Seagulls glided above the sea. Everything seemed peaceful, ordinary. Yet for Elias, nothing felt ordinary anymore. Not after the letter, not after meeting Mira, and certainly not after learning that the disappearing stars were not limited to Moonhaven. The mystery had become much larger. Larger than the town, larger than the sea, perhaps larger than the world itself. Together, Elias and Mira walked back toward the Moonhaven archive. The narrow streets wound between flower-covered cottages. Lavender swayed in the breeze. Wind chimes sang softly from porches. The town seemed unaware of the ancient story quietly awakening beneath its peaceful surface. As they approached the library, the clock tower struck 3. Its familiar bells echoed across rooftops. Deep, gentle, comforting. Mira glanced upward. Beautiful town. Elias smiled. It is. The traveler nodded thoughtfully. Places like this remember things. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? Mira looked toward the distant hills. Some places hold stories longer than people do. The answer lingered in his thoughts as they entered the archive. Mr. Finch looked unsurprised to see them, almost as though he had expected their return. The librarian stood atop a ladder organizing books. Dust floated through shafts of afternoon sunlight. The library felt timeless, a place where hours moved differently, a place where forgotten things waited patiently to be remembered. Mr. Finch climbed down carefully. I assume you've met the traveler. Mira smiled. You've met? The librarian studied her for a moment, then nodded. Good. As though confirming something. Something only he understood. Elias approached the table where the mysterious letter remained. The parchment sat exactly where he had left it. Yet another line had appeared. More silver words shimmered across the page. The sight immediately captured everyone's attention. Together they leaned closer. The message read, "When the sea forgets the stars, seek the map hidden inside the book that was never borrowed." Silence filled the room. Mr. Finch adjusted his spectacles. The book that was never borrowed? Mira smiled faintly. That's actually a better clue than most. Elias laughed softly. You've done this before. A few times. The traveler examined the shelves. Thousands of books surrounded them. Some old, some ancient. Some perhaps never opened at all. The challenge felt impossible. Yet something about the clue seemed deliberate, specific. Mr. Finch folded his arms thoughtfully. Perhaps not impossible. Both turned toward him. The librarian walked slowly toward a narrow corridor at the rear of the archive. Few visitors ever ventured there. Dust covered the shelves. The air smelled older. The books seemed quieter somehow, almost secretive. Mr. Finch stopped before a small alcove, a forgotten section of the library. This collection isn't listed in the catalog. Elias blinked. What? The librarian nodded. My predecessor requested it remain separate. The shelves contained perhaps 50 books. No labels, no titles visible, only weathered spines. Mira ran her fingers lightly across them, then paused. One book stood apart from the others, a dark blue volume covered in dust. Its spine appeared untouched. No wear, no fading, no signs it had ever been opened. Mr. Finch smiled. I've worked here 27 years. He gently removed the book. No one has ever borrowed this one. The room fell silent. The clue, the book that was never borrowed. Carefully, he placed it upon a wooden table. Dust drifted it. The air. The cover bore no title. only a silver star embossed at the center. Mira exchanged a glance with Elias, then opened the book. The pages were blank, completely blank. Hundreds of empty pages, nothing else. Elias frowned. That's it? For a moment, no one spoke. Then sunlight shifted through the library window. A beam of light crossed the open book, and suddenly, silver lines appeared, hidden ink, invisible until touched by sunlight. The pages shimmered. A map slowly emerged. Ancient coastlines, forgotten islands, strange symbols, constellations. The entire room seemed to hold its breath. The map expanded across dozens of pages, far more detailed than anything they had seen before. Mira stared, a rare look of astonishment crossing her face. I don't believe it. Elias looked up. You know this map? The traveler nodded slowly. I've been searching for it. Her voice carried genuine wonder, the sort that appears only when a lifelong mystery suddenly reveals itself. The silver pathways upon the pages connected stars to locations, dreams to destinations, stories to places. Everything seemed linked, part of a larger design. Then Elias noticed something, a symbol near the center, a lighthouse, simple, small, yet unmistakable. Beside it were written 3 words, the first observatory. The phrase felt important, ancient, significant. Mira touched the symbol carefully. The legends mention this place. Mr. Finch leaned closer. What legends? The traveler hesitated, then spoke quietly. Long ago, before maps were common, before kingdoms existed, there were stargazers. The library seemed even quieter now. Every word echoed softly among the shelves. They studied the sky. They recorded dreams. They believed every star carried a story. Elias listened carefully. Something about the tale felt familiar, as though he had heard fragments of it long ago, perhaps as a child, perhaps in a forgotten book. Mira continued. The first observatory was their sanctuary, the place where they watched over the stars. Mr. Finch frowned. What happened to it? The traveler looked toward the map. Her expression grew distant, thoughtful. No one knows. The answer carried centuries of mystery. The silver pathways glowed faintly, as though the map itself were listening, waiting. Then suddenly, a folded piece of parchment slipped from between the pages, drifting gently onto the table. Everyone froze. The paper looked ancient, older than the book itself. Its edges had yellowed with age. A wax seal remained partially intact. At its center appeared the same symbol, a lighthouse beneath the field of stars. Carefully, Elias opened it. The handwriting inside was elegant, precise, written by someone long gone. Yet the message felt remarkably personal. It read, If you are reading this, then the stars have begun to vanish. The room fell silent. The words seemed to echo, across years, across generations, across time itself. Elias continued reading. Do not fear their disappearance. The stars are not dying. They are being called home. A chill moved through him. Not fear, wonder, confusion, curiosity. The message continued. Follow the western cliffs. Seek the observatory beyond the sea mist. There you will learn why the sky is growing empty. The final line appeared beneath the others, written in darker ink, written with urgency. And hurry. The last star is already fading. The words seemed to settle over the room like falling snow. Quiet, beautiful, unavoidable. No one spoke immediately. The sea whispered outside. The library remained still. The mystery had grown once more. The stars were not disappearing. They were going somewhere, being called somewhere, and whatever waited at the first observatory held the answer. Mira slowly rolled up the hidden map. Mr. Finch closed the ancient book. The sunlight shifted. The silver pathways faded once again, returning to secrecy, returning to silence. But the truth remained, waiting beyond the cliffs, waiting beyond the mist, waiting beyond the sea. And somewhere high above Moonhaven, unseen by anyone below, another star quietly vanished from the evening sky. That evening, Moonhaven seemed quieter than usual. The harbor lanterns glowed softly. Warm light spilled from cottage windows. The scent of fresh bread drifted through the streets. Everything appeared exactly as it always had. Yet Elias felt as though the world had shifted. Some invisible door had opened. A door hidden behind ordinary things. A door leading toward mystery, toward wonder, toward answers. The hidden map rested safely inside his satchel. The ancient letter remained folded beside it. And somewhere beyond the western cliffs waited the first observatory, the place where the missing stars might finally be explained. Mrs. Willow insisted on packing enough food for several days. Fresh bread, apple pastries, honey cakes, a small jar of blackberry jam. The elderly baker placed everything into a woven basket, then handed it to Elias with a smile. Every adventure needs proper snacks. Elias laughed. I think that's a rule. It absolutely is. The baker's eyes sparkled. Then her smile softened. Be careful. He nodded. I will. Though he wasn't entirely sure what being careful meant when chasing disappearing stars. The townspeople gathered quietly near the western road as the sun began to set. Mr. Finch, Mrs. Harper, the florist, the clockmaker, the fisherman. Even children paused their games to watch. Moonhaven wasn't a large town. Everyone knew everyone, and somehow everyone seemed to understand that this journey mattered. The sky slowly darkened above them. One by one, stars emerged, yet there were fewer than before, noticeably fewer. The sight strengthened Elias's resolve. Something was happening, and someone needed to discover why. Mira adjusted her satchel. The silver star pendant around her neck caught the fading sunlight. We should leave before dark. Elias nodded. Together they stepped onto the western road. The townspeople waved, lanterns glowed behind them, the sea whispered nearby, and gradually Moonhaven faded into the distance. The road wound between rolling hills. Wildflowers swayed in the evening breeze. Crickets sang in hidden fields. The world felt peaceful, comfortable, as though encouraging travelers onward. The first hour passed quietly. Elias and Mira walked beneath a sky slowly filling with stars, or what remained of them. Eventually, the traveler spoke. You've never left Moonhaven before. It wasn't a question. Elias smiled. Is it that obvious? A little. He looked toward the horizon. I always meant to. But, he shrugged, there was always another day. Mira nodded. The world has a habit of feeling larger once you start walking through it. The answer lingered pleasantly in the evening air. They continued west. The hills gradually gave way to woodland. Ancient trees rose ahead, their branches intertwined high overhead, forming a vast green canopy. Moonlight filtered through the leaves. Silver patterns danced across the forest floor. The path narrowed, became quieter, more secluded. The moment they entered the woods, something changed. The air felt different, cooler, older. The forest seemed impossibly ancient, not merely old, ancient, like a place that had existed long before roads or towns or maps. The silence here felt alive, not empty, listening, watching, remembering. Mira slowed slightly. Her expression became thoughtful. We're here. Elias glanced around. The forest? The traveler nodded. The Forest of Echoes. The name sounded familiar somehow, like a story heard long ago, a tale half remembered. The trees towered overhead, their trunks wider than cottages, their roots twisted across the ground like rivers frozen in wood. Silver moss glowed faintly along the bark. Tiny lights drifted among the branches. Not insects, something else, something softer, more magical. Elias stared upward. The lights moved slowly through the darkness, like wandering stars. The forest seemed to breathe around them. Leaves rustled gently despite the absence of wind. Far away, an owl called softly. Then silence returned, deep, comforting, ancient. The path continued deeper into the woods. Moonlight became scarce. Shadows lengthened. The glowing lights overhead guided their way. After a while, Elias noticed something unusual. Whispers. Very faint, barely audible. At first, he assumed it was the wind. Yet the sounds continued. Soft voices drifting between the trees. Murmuring, whispering, speaking words he couldn't quite understand. He stopped walking. Do you hear that? Mira smiled. Yes. The traveler seemed unsurprised. The whispers grew clearer. Still gentle, still distant, like voices carried across water. Then one word emerged from the darkness. A name. Elias. He froze. The voice had spoken his name. Quietly, kindly, as though greeting an old friend. A chill traveled down his spine. Not fear, wonder. The trees rustled softly. Again the voice whispered. Elias. This time several others followed. Different voices, different tones, yet all speaking names. Names drifting through the forest. Names carried among the leaves. The realization struck him. The trees are talking. Mira nodded. They remember. The answer somehow felt perfectly natural. The traveler rested her hand against a nearby trunk. The bark shimmered faintly beneath her fingers. This forest remembers every traveler who has ever passed through it. Elias stared. Every traveler? Every person? The concept seemed impossible. Yet standing here, surrounded by ancient trees and silver lights, impossibility felt remarkably ordinary. The whispers continued. Thousands of names drifting softly through the woods. Not loud, not haunting, comforting. Like pages turning in an endless book. Like memories refusing to fade. They resumed walking. The path wound deeper into the forest. The glowing lights grew brighter, the whispers more numerous. The entire woodland seemed alive with remembrance. Then, something extraordinary happened. A tree beside the path shimmered, its bark brightened. Silver patterns appeared across its surface, lines of light twisting and flowing like rivers. Elias stopped. The patterns slowly formed words. His breath caught. A single sentence emerged upon the trunk. "Welcome, stargazer." The message glowed softly, then faded, returning to ordinary bark. Elias looked toward Mira. The traveler appeared thoughtful, not surprised, not frightened, thoughtful. As I suspected. What? Mira glanced toward the deeper forest. The magic is waking. The answer sent a curious excitement through him. The forest seemed brighter now, more alive, as though aware of their presence, as though expecting them. The path curved ahead, disappearing into silver mist. The trees grew larger, older. The whispers grew quieter, respectful, almost reverent. Then suddenly the forest opened. A small clearing appeared. Moonlight poured down from above. Silver grass swayed gently. At the center stood a stone well, ancient, weathered, covered in moss. Its circular walls gleamed faintly beneath the stars. The sight felt important, significant, the sort of place stories gathered around. Mira approached slowly. The silver pendant around her neck glowed softly. Elias followed. Together they peered into the well. Darkness greeted them, endless darkness. Then, a light appeared, far below, tiny, silver, flickering. The light drifted upward, slowly, gracefully, as though rising from impossible depths. Elias watched in wonder. The light grew brighter, closer, larger, until at last it emerged from the well, floating gently above the stone rim. A star, a real star, small enough to fit within both hands, yet undeniably a star. Its silver glow illuminated the clearing. The trees, the grass, the travelers, everything shimmered beneath its light. The tiny star hovered before them, silent, beautiful, alive. Elias could hardly breathe. That's impossible. Mira smiled softly. No. Her eyes reflected starlight. I think it's exactly what's supposed to happen. The star drifted westward, toward the deeper forest, toward the sea, toward whatever waited beyond the mist. Then it paused, as though looking back, as though inviting them to follow. And for the first time since this journey began, Elias realized something extraordinary. The stars were not merely disappearing. They were traveling, and one had just shown them the way. The tiny star hovered above the ancient well. Its silver glow bathed the clearing in soft light. The surrounding trees shimmered. Their leaves reflected starlight like polished glass. For several moments, neither Elias nor Mira spoke. Both simply watched. The star seemed alive. Not alive in the way birds or animals were alive, but alive with purpose, with intention, as though it knew exactly where it was going and exactly why. Slowly, the little star drifted toward the western edge of the clearing. It paused once more. Its light pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Then it continued onward. Mira smiled. I think we should follow. Elias laughed softly. I was hoping you'd say that. Together, they stepped back onto the path. The tiny star floated ahead, never too fast, never too far, always remaining visible between the trees. The deeper they traveled into the forest of echoes, the stranger the woodland became. The trunks grew larger. The roots twisted into shapes resembling staircases and archways. Silver moss grew brighter, and the whispers continued. Thousands of names drifting softly through the darkness. Yet now the voices seemed happier somehow, as though celebrating something, as though welcoming an old story back into the world. Hours passed peacefully. The forest felt timeless, dreamlike, the sort of place where clocks forgot their purpose. At last, the trees began to thin. Moonlight grew brighter. A cool breeze drifted through the branches. And ahead, beyond the final line of ancient oaks, something glimmered. Golden, warm, beautiful. The tiny star floated toward it, then disappeared beyond the trees. Elias and Mira followed, and stopped. The sight before them stole every word from their mouths. A bridge stretched across the night. Not a bridge crossing a river. Not a bridge crossing a canyon. A bridge suspended above clouds. Endless clouds. A vast silver sea of mist rolled beneath the structure, illuminated by moonlight. The bridge itself appeared ancient, built from pale stone and silver wood. Elegant. Arches stretched into the distance. Lanterns lined both sides. thousands upon thousands of lanterns. Each glowed with its own unique light. Some gold, some silver, some blue, some pale violet. The entire bridge shimmered like a river of stars, floating above the world. Elias stared. This place isn't on any map. Mira smiled softly. Some places don't want to be found. The traveler stepped forward. Her boots touched the first stone of the bridge. Nothing happened. The structure remained solid, real, waiting. Elias followed. The moment his foot touched the bridge, a nearby lantern brightened. Its golden light expanded, warm, comforting. A faint image appeared inside the lantern. A memory. A child flying a kite beside the ocean. Laughter, sunshine, joy. Then the image faded, returning to light. Elias blinked. What was that? Mira glanced toward the lantern. A dream. The answer felt both impossible and completely natural. The traveler continued walking. The lantern bridge is older than most kingdoms. The stories say each lantern contains a forgotten dream. Elias looked around. There were thousands, perhaps millions, stretching farther than he could see. An entire bridge built from dreams. The realization filled him with wonder. As they walked, more lanterns brightened. One showed an elderly man planting apple trees. Another revealed a young girl learning to play the violin. A third displayed a family gathered around a fireplace during winter. Simple moments, beautiful moments, dreams, memories, hopes. Each lantern held a story, and each story glowed softly against the darkness. The bridge remained silent, except for the occasional chime of glass lanterns moving in the breeze. The sound felt peaceful, like distant music, like lullabies carried across the clouds. Eventually, they reached the center of the bridge. Here, the lanterns grew larger, brighter, bolder. The silver sea beneath them stretched endlessly in every direction. Moonlight danced across its surface. Far above, the stars sparkled, though fewer than before, much fewer. Elias leaned against the railing. The sight was breathtaking. The world below seemed forgotten, tiny, far away. Mira stood nearby, studying the sky, thoughtful, quiet. Then something unusual caught Elias's attention. One lantern remained dark, unlike the others. No glow, no dream, no memory, just darkness. It hung alone near the center of the bridge. The sight felt wrong somehow, as though a note were missing from a song. He approached carefully. The lantern swayed gently, empty, silent. Mira noticed his expression, then followed his gaze. For the first time since they'd met, genuine concern crossed her face. That's not good. Elias looked up. What is it? The traveler stepped closer. Her silver pendant dimmed slightly. Every lantern should contain a dream. She reached toward the dark lantern. The moment her fingers touched the glass, a faint crack appeared across its surface. A single silver fracture. Tiny, yet unmistakable. The lantern chimed softly. A sad sound, almost like a sigh. Elias felt a strange ache in his chest. The sensation surprised him, as though he had lost something precious without realizing it. Mira withdrew her hand. The bridge is weakening. The words settled heavily between them. Weakening? The traveler nodded. Dreams and stars are connected. She looked toward the sky. The more stars disappear, the more unstable places like this become. The realization sent a chill through him. The mystery was growing larger once again. The disappearing stars weren't simply leaving. Their absence was changing the world. Ancient places, forgotten places, magical places, all connected somehow. The tiny star they had followed reappeared, floating above the dark lantern. Its silver light brightened. The crack vanished. The lantern flickered, then slowly began glowing once more. A warm golden light filled its glass. Inside appeared a memory. A woman reading bedtime stories beside a fireplace. A child listening sleepily beneath a blanket. Comfort, love, home. The image faded. The lantern remained lit. The bridge seemed to sigh with relief. Mira smiled. So that's why it brought us here. Elias watched the tiny star.
Its glow appeared stronger now, more confident, as though it had accomplished something important. Then the star drifted westward again, toward the far end of the bridge, toward another destination, another clue, another piece of the story. Together they followed. The lanterns brightened as they passed, thousands of dreams illuminating the night, thousands of hopes refusing to fade. At last they reached the bridge's western end. A stone archway stood waiting. Ancient symbols covered its surface, stars, moons, constellations, and at its center appeared a familiar image, a lighthouse.
The same lighthouse from the hidden map, the same symbol from the ancient letter. Beyond the archway, a narrow path descended through silver mist. The ocean could be heard somewhere below, waves crashing gently against unseen cliffs. The tiny star floated toward the mist, then disappeared, gone from sight. Yet somehow Elias knew it hadn't left them. It was waiting, further ahead. The path beyond the archway seemed darker, older, filled with mystery. Yet it also felt welcoming, like a road long prepared for their arrival. Mira adjusted her satchel. The lantern bridge glowed behind them. The sea of clouds rolled softly beneath the moon. And somewhere ahead, hidden beyond the mist, another answer waited. Perhaps the first observatory. Perhaps something even older. The stars above shimmered faintly, watching, waiting, guiding. And together, Elias and Mira stepped beyond the archway and continued west, toward the unknown, toward the lighthouse, toward the secret hidden behind the disappearing stars. Beyond the stone archway, the world seemed quieter, not silent, simply softer, as though every sound had been wrapped in velvet. The mist rolled gently across the path, silver and pale blue beneath the moonlight. The lantern bridge slowly disappeared behind them, its countless lights fading into the distance. Soon only a warm golden glow remained upon the horizon. Then even that vanished. Elias and Mira continued west. The narrow trail wound downward between ancient cliffs. Wildflowers bloomed among the rocks. Tiny silver blossoms opened beneath the moon. Their petals shimmered softly. The air smelled of rain, of sea salt, of distant forests. Everything felt peaceful, dreamlike, the sort of place one might discover only while sleeping. For a long while, neither traveler spoke. There was no need. The night carried its own conversation. The wind whispered through tall grass. Crickets sang somewhere unseen. Far below, waves met stone in a slow and steady rhythm. The world seemed content simply existing. Eventually, another sound appeared, so faint Elias almost missed it. A melody, soft, beautiful, drifting through the mist. He paused. "Do you hear that?" Mira smiled. "I was wondering when you would." The melody floated across the landscape, gentle notes rising and falling, like a lullaby remembered from childhood, like a song sung long ago. The music felt familiar, though Elias knew he had never heard it before. The strange contradiction made his heart ache with nostalgia. They followed the sound. The path curved around a rocky hillside. The melody grew clearer. More voices joined it. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Not singing words, simply humming. Harmony flowing through the night. The music felt ancient, older than towns, older than roads, older even than stories. At last they reached a valley and stopped. Before them flowed a river unlike any Elias had ever seen. Moonlight danced across its surface. Silver currents wound through the grass. Tiny stars sparkled beneath the water. Not reflections, actual stars. Thousands of glowing lights drifted within the river itself. The sight was breathtaking. Every ripple produced music. Every current carried melody. The river sang. The realization felt impossible, and yet undeniable. The water itself created the songs. Mira stepped forward. The river of forgotten songs. Her voice carried quiet reverence. Elias stared. "It's beautiful." The traveler nodded. "One of the oldest places in the world." The river stretched beyond sight, disappearing into silver fog. Its music echoed across the valley, comforting, gentle, endless. The sort of sound that made tired minds grow calm, made worries feel smaller, made sleep feel near. They followed the riverbank, listening. The melodies changed constantly. Each bend in the river carried a different tune, some cheerful, some bittersweet, some filled with wonder, others with quiet hope. Every song felt connected to someone, to a memory, to a life. Eventually, Elias noticed something unusual. Among the countless melodies, one song sounded stronger than the others, clearer,
more distinct. It drifted above the river, calling gently, inviting attention. Mira heard it too. Her expression grew thoughtful. Interesting. What is it? The traveler tilted her head. That song is trying to be remembered. Together they followed the melody. The river curved through a grove of silver willow trees. Their branches swayed softly above the water. The song grew louder, clearer, until at last they reached its source. A single stone rested beside the river, smooth, ancient, covered in glowing symbols. The melody emerged from within the stone itself, as though it were singing, as though it had been waiting for someone to listen. Elias knelt beside
it. The song immediately changed. Words appeared, soft, distant, like a voice carried across centuries. A woman was singing. Her voice felt warm, comforting, full of kindness. The language was unfamiliar, yet somehow Elias understood every word. Not with his ears, with his heart. The song spoke of stars, of dreams, of journeys, of guardians watching the night sky. The melody painted images within his mind. Ancient towers, glowing observatories, travelers carrying lanterns across mountain peaks, and above them all, a sky overflowing with stars, more stars than he had ever imagined. The vision felt vivid, real. Then another image appeared. The stars began moving, not randomly, not chaotically, purposefully, traveling toward a single destination, gathering, returning. The song grew quieter, sadder, and one final message emerged, a message hidden within the melody, a warning, or perhaps a truth. The stars are returning to their source. Elias felt a chill. The phrase echoed through his thoughts, returning to their source, not disappearing, not dying, returning. Mira's eyes widened slightly. She had heard it too. The traveler looked toward the west, toward the distant horizon, toward whatever waited beyond the sea. The observatory. Elias nodded. The answers are there. The river continued singing around them. Countless forgotten songs flowing through moonlit currents. Memories carried by water. Stories preserved by music. The valley seemed timeless, peaceful, sacred. For several minutes they simply listened. The melody soothed every anxious thought, every lingering worry. The sound felt healing somehow, like being wrapped in warmth, like finally arriving home after a long journey. Then something remarkable happened. One of the glowing stars within the river drifted toward the shore. The tiny light rose from the water, hovering gently before Elias. It looked familiar. The same small star that had guided them from the forest of echoes. Its glow seemed brighter now, stronger. The little star circled him once, then floated toward the western end of the valley. Again it paused. Again it seemed to invite them forward. Mira laughed softly. Our guide has returned. The star pulsed happily. At least that was how it seemed. Then it continued onward, leading them deeper into the unknown. They followed. The river gradually narrowed. The songs became quieter. The mist thickened. Moonlight shimmered through the fog. Everything felt suspended between waking and dreaming. Ahead, the valley opened toward the sea. The ocean stretched beyond the cliffs, dark and endless beneath the stars, or what remained of them. Yet something else stood upon the horizon, far away, barely visible. A structure, tall, ancient, silhouetted against the moonlit sky. Elias stopped. His breath caught. The shape resembled a tower, a very old tower. Its outline stood against the seamess like a memory refusing to fade. Mira stared silently. The tiny star brightened, its silver glow reflected in her eyes. At last she spoke. The observatory. The words drifted softly into the night. The destination they had been chasing. The place hidden on forgotten maps. The place mentioned in ancient letters.
The place connected to the missing stars. It was real. And now, for the first time, they could see it. Though only barely. The tower stood impossibly far away. Across cliffs. Across mist. Across mysteries yet unsolved. Still, the sight filled Elias with hope. The journey was working. Every clue, every dream, every forgotten song, all leading toward the same place, the same answer, the same truth. Above them, the stars shimmered faintly, watching, waiting. And somewhere beyond the sea, the ancient observatory waited too, patient as the night itself. The observatory stood upon the horizon, distant, silent, ancient. Its shadow rose beyond the sea mist like the memory of a forgotten age. For several moments, Elias simply stared. The tower felt impossible, not because it existed, but because it somehow felt familiar, as though he had seen it long ago, perhaps in a dream, perhaps in a story, perhaps somewhere deeper than memory itself. The tiny silver star hovered nearby. Its glow reflected softly upon the grass, patient, waiting, almost encouraging. Mira adjusted her satchel. The observatory is closer than it appears. Elias smiled. That sounds impossible. The traveler laughed quietly. Many true things do. The river's melodies faded behind them as they continued west. Moonlight silvered the landscape. The path followed the edge of towering cliffs overlooking the sea. Far below, waves rolled endlessly against stone. Their rhythm felt comforting, like the slow breathing of the world. The night remained calm, peaceful, perfect for wandering.
Perfect for wandering. Hours passed gently. The observatory remained visible in the distance, never seeming near, never seeming farther, simply waiting. Then the path curved inward, away from the sea, toward rolling hills covered in silver grass. The tiny star floated ahead, its glow brightening slightly, as though recognizing something. The travelers followed. Soon they noticed another sound. Not music, not wind. A ticking. Soft, steady, almost too quiet to hear. Tick, 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 tick. The sound drifted across the hills, regular, precise, unchanging. Mira slowed. A thoughtful expression crossed her face. Elias? Yes? Do you hear that? The ticking? She nodded. Good. The answer seemed oddly reassuring. The ticking grew louder as they continued. The silver grass swayed around them. Moonlight shimmered across every blade. The night air felt cool and pleasant. Eventually they reached the crest of a hill and stopped. Below them stood a small cottage. Warm light glowed through circular windows. Flower gardens surrounded the stone walls. Tiny windmills spun lazily beside the path. And everywhere, clocks. Hundreds of them. Large clocks, small clocks, grandfather clocks, pocket watches hanging from tree branches, clock faces mounted upon fences, clock towers no taller than a person, every one of them ticking. The sound filled the air, yet somehow remained peaceful, not overwhelming, almost musical, like rain tapping softly against glass. Elias stared. This wasn't on the map. Mira smiled. It rarely is. The cottage looked cozy, inviting, comfortable, the sort of place where stories gathered. The front door stood slightly open. Warm golden light spilled onto the path. The tiny star floated directly toward it, then disappeared inside, as though returning home. The travelers exchanged a glance, then approached. The ticking grew softer near the doorway, more distant, more dreamlike. Inside, the cottage felt larger than it appeared from outside. Shelves lined every wall, filled with clocks. Thousands of clocks, each ticking at its own pace, each measuring its own version of time. Some ran quickly, others slowly. A few seemed completely still, yet none appeared broken. At the center of the room stood a workbench, and beside it sat an elderly man. Or rather, he appeared to be asleep. His silver hair fell across his shoulders. Round spectacles rested upon his nose. A blue waistcoat covered a white shirt. One hand rested upon an unfinished pocket watch, the other upon an open notebook. He looked peaceful, comfortable, as though he had merely paused for a short nap. Except for one detail.
A thin layer of silver dust covered everything around him. The workbench, the notebook, the floor, even the sleeping clockmaker himself. The dust shimmered faintly beneath the lantern light, like powdered starlight. Mira's expression softened. Oh no. Elias lowered his voice. Do you know him? The traveler nodded. The clockmaker. That's his name? No one remembers his real one anymore. The answer felt strangely sad. The cottage remained quiet except for the ticking. The sleeping man did not move, did not stir, did not even seem to breathe. Yet he didn't appear dead, merely distant, far away, as though dreaming somewhere unreachable. Mira approached carefully. The stories say he keeps time for forgotten places. Elias looked around, at the countless clocks, at the shimmering dust, at the peaceful sleeping figure. What happened to him? The traveler sighed softly. I don't know. The tiny star appeared once more, floating above the workbench. Its glow illuminated the notebook. The pages rustled, turning by themselves. One page stopped, open, waiting. Elias stepped closer. The handwriting was neat, precise. Thousands of notes filled the pages. Diagrams, calculations, maps of stars. Then he noticed a final entry, written hurriedly, as though the writer had run out of time. The words read, "The stars have begun returning." His heartbeat quickened. The same message again. Returning, not disappearing. Returning. The notebook continued. When enough stars gather, the gate will open. When the gate opens, the source will awaken. When the source awakens, the last stargazer must choose. Elias stared. The room seemed suddenly quieter. The ticking softened. The lantern light dimmed slightly. He continued reading. I fear I will not remain awake long enough to explain everything. The final sentence ended abruptly. The ink trailed off, as though the writer had fallen asleep mid-thought. Mira leaned closer. The gate. She seemed troubled. What does it mean? Before Elias could answer, something remarkable happened. One of the clocks chimed. Then another. Then another. The sounds echoed gently through the cottage. Silver dust rose into
the air, glowing softly. The sleeping clockmaker stirred, only slightly. A single breath, a tiny movement, yet enough to fill the room with anticipation. The old man's eyes opened. For the briefest moment, just a moment, they glowed silver, like moonlight, like stars, like dreams. He looked directly at Elias, not confused, not surprised, expectant, as though he had been waiting for years, perhaps centuries. His lips moved, barely. The words emerged as a whisper softer than wind, yet perfectly clear. Find the observatory. Elias leaned forward. The old man's eyes began closing once more. The silver glow faded. Sleep reclaimed him. Yet before he drifted away completely, he spoke one final sentence. A sentence that would echo through Elias's thoughts long after the night ended. The last star is not in the sky. Then he slept again, deeply, peacefully. The cottage fell silent. The clocks resumed their gentle ticking. The silver dust settled slowly through lantern light. Elias stood motionless. The words repeated inside his mind. The last star is not in the sky. What could that possibly mean? The mystery had deepened once again. The stars were returning. A gate was opening. A source was awakening. And somehow, the final star was somewhere else entirely. Mira closed the notebook carefully. Her expression remained thoughtful, concerned, yet hopeful. The tiny silver star drifted toward the window. Its glow brightened, pointing west, toward the sea, toward the distant observatory, toward answers. Outside, the night remained calm. The stars shimmered above, fewer now than ever before. Yet somehow they felt closer, as though gathering, as though preparing.
as though waiting for something important, something inevitable, something that had not happened for a very long time. And together, beneath the quiet ticking of forgotten clocks, Elias and Mira stepped back into the moonlit night. The journey continued. The observatory awaited. And somewhere ahead, hidden beyond mist and memory, the truth behind the disappearing stars was finally beginning to reveal itself. The cottage of the sleeping clockmaker slowly disappeared behind them. Its warm lantern light became a distant glow upon the hills. Then even that vanished. Only moonlight remained, soft, silver, endless. Elias walked quietly beside Mira. The old clockmaker's words echoed through his thoughts. The last star is not in the sky. Again and again. The sentence felt important, like a key hidden inside a riddle. Yet no matter how many times he repeated it, its meaning remained beyond reach. The tiny silver star drifted ahead. Its glow seemed brighter than before, as though it knew they were getting closer. Closer to the observatory, closer to the truth, closer to whatever waited at the end of this strange and beautiful journey. The night remained calm. The sea whispered beyond the cliffs. Silver clouds drifted lazily across the stars, or what remained of them. Elias noticed the sky looked emptier now. The realization brought a quiet sadness. There were still constellations overhead, still enough stars to guide travelers, yet the darkness between them had grown. The spaces felt larger, the silences deeper, as though the sky itself were slowly exhaling, letting something go. Mira seemed to notice his gaze. They aren't gone. Elias looked at her. The stars? She nodded. They're traveling. The answer carried the same certainty she always seemed to possess. Not certainty born from knowledge, but from trust. Trust in the story unfolding around them. Trust that everything had meaning. The path curved inland once more, away from the sea, away from the cliffs. Rolling hills stretched before them, covered in silver grass. Moonlight painted the landscape in shades of blue and silver. Everything felt dreamlike, timeless, beautiful. Then something appeared ahead. A hill unlike the others, larger, rounder, almost perfectly shaped. At first glance it seemed ordinary, yet as they approached, Elias noticed something unusual. Windows. Tiny windows glowing warmly beneath the earth. His eyes widened. Is that? Mira smiled. Yes. The hill wasn't a hill. Or rather it was. But it was also a house. A house built beneath the hillside itself. Only portions of its stone walls remained visible. The rest blended seamlessly into the landscape. Grass covered the roof. Wildflowers bloomed along its slopes. Lanterns glowed behind round windows. The entire place looked as though it had grown naturally from the earth, like something planted long ago, something that had quietly flourished. The tiny silver star drifted toward a wooden door set into the hillside, then stopped, waiting. Elias approached slowly. The door
appeared ancient, weathered by countless seasons. A symbol had been carved into its center, a star, surrounded by a circle. The same symbol appeared throughout their journey, on maps, on letters, on forgotten buildings, a sign belonging to the stargazers. The realization filled him with anticipation. Mira gently pushed the door open. Warm light spilled outward, golden, inviting, comfortable. The smell of old books drifted through the air, along with something else. Tea, fresh tea. The scent immediately made the house feel welcoming, safe, homelike. Together they stepped inside. The interior exceeded every expectation. The house stretched deep beneath the hill. Circular rooms connected by stone archways. Bookshelves lined every wall. Thousands of books. Thousands of journals. Thousands of stories. Lanterns hung from wooden beams overhead. Their light flickered softly, creating pools of gold among the shadows. The entire place felt peaceful. A sanctuary. A refuge. A home for memories. Elias slowly turned. Every shelf contained journals, leather-bound volumes, each marked with a name and a year. Some names were familiar, most were not. The oldest journals appeared centuries old. The newest looked recent, very recent. Mira ran her fingers along one shelf. Her expression became thoughtful. This is impossible. Elias glanced toward her. You've never been here? She shook her head. No. For the first time since meeting her, she seemed genuinely surprised. The traveler studied the countless journals. I've searched for this house for years. The realization made the place feel even more extraordinary. If Mira had never found it, perhaps few others had. Perhaps no one.
The tiny silver star floated deeper into the house, passing through archways, guiding them onward. At last they entered a circular chamber, the largest room yet. A great stone fireplace burned at its center. Warmth filled the space. Comfort. Peace. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, and upon every shelf rested journals. Thousands upon thousands. The sight felt overwhelming. Beautiful. Sacred. Above the fireplace hung a wooden sign. Its carved letters had faded with age, yet they remained readable. The House of Remembering. Elias stared. The name seemed perfect. This place remembered things. People. Stories. Dreams. Lives. The tiny silver star floated toward a wooden table near the fire. Several journals rested there, waiting, almost deliberately. One journal lay open, as though someone had been reading it moments ago. Elias approached. The cover bore no name, only a star symbol. Curious, he opened the book. The pages shimmered softly, and suddenly, the room changed. Not physically, something deeper. A memory emerged. The air filled with silver light. Images appeared around him, living images. A young woman stood upon a cliff overlooking the sea. She wore a blue traveling coat. A silver star pendant hung around her neck. Elias blinked. Mira! The traveler stared, speechless. The woman looked exactly like her, not similar, identical. The vision continued. The young woman stood beside an ancient observatory, the same observatory visible beyond the sea, the same tower they sought. She smiled towards someone unseen. Then the memory faded. The room returned. The fire crackled softly. Silence followed. Mira remained motionless, her face pale, confused. Elias looked toward her. What was that? The traveler didn't answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice sounded distant, uncertain. I don't know. The response surprised him. Mira always seemed to know something, always understood more than she revealed. Yet now she appeared genuinely shaken. She opened the journal, examined the first page. The handwriting was elegant, ancient. The entry had been written hundreds of years ago, and signed with a name that made both travelers freeze. Mira. The room seemed to hold its breath. Elias stared. The traveler stared. Neither spoke. The name remained there, written in fading age, centuries old. Impossible. Mira slowly turned another page, then another. Each entry described journeys, stars, observatories, dreams, stories, all written by someone sharing her name, someone who looked exactly like her, someone who had lived hundreds of years earlier. The mystery deepened, became stranger, older, more personal. The fire crackled gently. The lanterns glowed. The House of Remembering remained peaceful, yet something significant had changed. The journey was no longer only about disappearing stars. It was about Mira, too, about her past, about a connection stretching across centuries. Then the tiny silver star brightened. Its glow filled the room. The fireplace responded. Golden flames turned silver. A hidden compartment opened above the mantel. Dust drifted downward. Inside rested a single object, an ancient key, silver, beautiful. Its hand
Formed the shape of a star. Attached to it was a note, yellowed with age, waiting, patient. The note contained only one sentence: for the last stargazer. Elias stared at the key. The room seemed suddenly quieter. The journey had offered another gift, another clue, another step forward. And somewhere beyond the hills, beyond the sea, beyond the mist, the first observatory continued waiting, as though it had always known they were coming. The silver key rested upon the table. Its polished surface reflected the firelight. Tiny stars seemed to shimmer within the metal, not engraved, not carved, as though actual starlight had somehow become part of its making. For several moments, neither Elias nor Mira spoke. The House of Remembering remained peaceful around them. The fireplace crackled softly. Lanterns glowed warmly. Ancient journals watched silently from endless shelves. The entire house felt awake, listening, waiting. The note beside the key lay open, only 4 words. Yet those 4 words carried enormous weight. For the last stargazer. Elias carefully lifted the key. The metal felt warm, unexpectedly warm, not cold like silver should be. The moment his fingers closed around it, a faint pulse traveled through the handle, like a heartbeat, gentle, steady, alive. Mira noticed immediately. It recognizes you. Elias frowned. The key? The traveler nodded. I think so. The answer should have sounded ridiculous. Yet after floating stars, singing rivers, and forests that remembered names, it felt perfectly reasonable. The key brightened slightly. A soft silver glow spread across its surface. Then something extraordinary happened. One of the stone walls shifted. A low rumble echoed through the chamber. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Ancient mechanisms awakened somewhere beneath the house. Slowly, a hidden doorway appeared. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. Cool air drifted upward. Ancient air. Still, quiet, forgotten. The hidden passage had likely remained sealed for centuries, perhaps longer. The tiny silver star floated toward the staircase. Its glow illuminated the first few steps, waiting, inviting. Mira adjusted her lantern. I suppose we're going down. Elias laughed softly. I think the story has decided for us. Together they approached the staircase. The house of remembering grew quieter behind them. The warmth of the fire faded. The hidden passage swallowed sound. Each step echoed gently against stone. Downward they traveled, deeper beneath the hill, deeper beneath memory. The staircase seemed endless, yet eventually it ended. A circular chamber opened before them. The room was unlike anything they had seen before. Its walls were formed from polished black stone. Stars glittered across the surface. Not painted stars, not carvings, real points of light embedded within the walls themselves. The chamber looked like a piece of the night sky hidden underground. Elias slowly turned in awe. The stars surrounded them, thousands of them, perhaps millions. The room felt vast despite its size, infinite despite its boundaries. At the center stood a pedestal, ancient, carved from silver stone, and resting upon it was a single object, a letter, folded neatly, waiting. The paper shimmered softly, as though woven from moonlight. The tiny silver star drifted toward it, hovering protectively above the parchment. Mira stared. I don't think anyone has opened that. Elias nodded slowly. The feeling was unmistakable. This message had waited a very long time, perhaps centuries, perhaps longer. The silver key in his hand pulsed again, a gentle warmth, an invitation. Carefully, he approached the pedestal. The letter seemed impossibly delicate, yet perfectly preserved, as though time itself had protected it. He unfolded the parchment. Silver ink immediately appeared across the page. Elegant handwriting flowed across the surface. Not written by any person. At least, it didn't feel that way. The words carried a strange sense of vastness, like ocean waves, like moonlight, like the sky itself. And at the very top appeared a title, The Last Letter from the Sky. A quiet silence filled the chamber. Then Elias began reading. To the one who arrives when the stars begin returning. To the one called the Last Stargazer. To the one who still remembers wonder. The words glowed softly. The room seemed brighter. The stars embedded in the walls shimmered gently. If you are reading this, then the sky is changing. The stars are leaving their places. The old paths are awakening. And the story is nearing its final chapter. Elias continued. Every sentence felt important, ancient, necessary. Long ago, before kingdoms, before maps, before roads crossed the world, the stars were gathered. A place beyond the horizon, a place beyond memory, a place called the Heart of Night. The name seemed to echo through the chamber, Heart of Night. The phrase felt familiar somehow, as though hidden inside every story ever told. Mira listened silently. Her eyes reflected silver starlight. Elias read on. The stars were never meant to remain forever. Each age borrows them. Each generation watches them. And eventually they return home. A strange peace settled over him. The mystery finally began making sense. The stars weren't disappearing because something was wrong. They were returning because something was ending, or perhaps beginning. The letter continued. When the final cycle arrives, a stargazer must guide the stars home.
not through force, not through command, through remembrance. The chamber remained perfectly still. Even the air seemed to listen. For stars are born from stories, and stories survive only when remembered. Elias felt a chill, not fear, wonder. The sentence carried a truth deeper than explanation. Stories mattered, dreams mattered, memories mattered, perhaps more than anyone realized. He continued reading. The first observatory was built to protect this truth. Its keepers watched the stars. Its stargazers guarded the stories. Its lanterns preserved the dreams of the world. Images flashed briefly through his mind. Ancient towers, glowing observatories, countless travelers studying the sky. The same scenes from the river of forgotten songs, the same forgotten age. Then he reached the final section, the final message, the final truth. When the last star is found, the gate will open. When the gate opens, the heart of night will awaken, and the last stargazer must decide what comes next. The words shimmered. Then one final sentence appeared, a sentence that seemed written directly for him. The last star is not above you. It has always been within you. Silence. Complete silence. The chamber seemed to hold its breath. Elias lowered the letter slowly. His heartbeat echoed in his ears. The final star. Not in the sky. Not hidden beyond the sea. Not waiting in some distant tower. Within him, the realization felt enormous, and yet he didn't fully understand it. Not yet. Mira looked equally stunned. Neither spoke for several moments. The stars embedded in the walls glowed brighter. The tiny silver guide star drifted toward Elias, hovering near his chest. Its light pulsed gently, almost affectionately. Then something unexpected happened. The chamber trembled, only slightly, but enough to be noticed. Dust drifted from above. The walls shimmered. The stars embedded in the stone brightened, one by one, thousands of lights awakening together. A low hum filled the room, ancient, powerful. The House of Remembering was responding. The letter's message had activated something, some forgotten mechanism, some hidden truth. Then a new image appeared upon the wall, a map, made entirely of starlight. Silver pathways stretched across oceans, across mountains, across the world itself. Every path converged toward a single destination. The same destination, the same place, the first observatory. This time it glowed brilliantly, no longer distant, no longer hidden, calling, waiting, ready. Mira stared at the map. The path is open. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. Elias nodded. The journey was changing. Everything was changing. The clues, the letters, the dreams, the stars, all of it had led to this. The observatory awaited, and beyond it waited the heart of night, the place where stars were born, the place where they returned, the place where the final answer lived. Above them, unseen beyond stone and earth, another star quietly left the sky, not fading, not dying, returning home. The starlit map slowly faded from the chamber wall. Silver pathways dissolved into darkness. The glowing stars embedded within the stone returned to their gentle shimmer. Silence settled once more, yet everything felt different now. The mystery no longer seemed distant. The answers were drawing closer, closer with every step, closer with every breath. The ancient letter remained in Elias's hands. Its final words echoed softly within him. The last star is not above you. It has always been within you. He still didn't fully understand, but somehow the words no longer felt impossible. They felt patient, like a truth waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. The tiny silver guide star floated toward the staircase. Its glow brightened, waiting, ready. Mira smiled softly. I think it's time. Elias nodded. Together they climbed back toward the house.
Remembering, the journey ahead felt clearer now. The observatory awaited, and somewhere before it stood the lighthouse, marked on every map. The lighthouse that had appeared in every clue. The lighthouse connected to the stargazers, connected to the stars themselves. The final stretch of the journey had begun. By dawn, they had left the hidden house behind. Golden sunlight spilled across the hills. Morning mist drifted through the valleys. Birdsong echoed softly among distant trees. For the first time in days, they traveled beneath daylight rather than stars. Though fewer stars remained each night, their absence somehow felt less frightening now. The sky was changing, not ending, changing,
returning. The thought comforted Elias. The path gradually led back toward the sea. The air grew cooler. Salt carried upon the breeze. The distant sound of waves reached them once again. Hours passed peacefully. The tiny guide star remained visible despite the daylight, a faint silver glow drifting ahead, never hurrying, never slowing, always guiding. Eventually, the cliffs returned, towering walls of stone overlooking endless ocean. The sea stretched beyond the horizon, blue and silver beneath the afternoon sun, beautiful, boundless. And there, far ahead, rising from the mist, the lighthouse. Elias stopped, his breath caught. The structure towered above the cliffs, ancient stone weathered by countless storms. Its white surface gleamed softly in the sunlight. The lantern chamber at its peak reflected the sky. Seabirds circled overhead. Clouds drifted lazily behind it. The lighthouse looked impossibly old, yet perfectly maintained, as though time itself respected the place. Mira stood beside him, quietly admiring the view. Every map led here, Elias nodded. Every clue, every letter, every dream, everything had pointed toward this place. The tiny silver star floated toward the lighthouse. Its glow intensified, almost joyful, as though returning somewhere familiar. Together they followed the cliffside road. The closer they approached, the stranger the lighthouse seemed. Its windows reflected stars even during daylight. Silver symbols decorated the stone walls, the same symbols they had seen throughout their journey. Stars, lanterns, constellations, stories, everything connected. The great wooden door stood open, waiting, not abandoned, welcoming. Elias exchanged a glance with Mira, then stepped inside. The interior surprised him. Instead of cold stone corridors, warmth greeted them. Books lined the walls. Comfortable chairs surrounded small tables. Lanterns glowed softly overhead. The scent of tea filled the air. The place felt less like a lighthouse, more like a home, a place where travelers rested, where stories were shared, where time moved gently. At the center of the room sat an elderly woman. She occupied a wooden rocking chair beside a window overlooking the sea. Silver hair cascaded across her shoulders. A blue shawl rested around her shoulders. A teacup sat nearby. She appeared calm, peaceful, as though she had been expecting company. The tiny silver guide star floated directly toward her, then settled upon the armrest of her chair. The woman smiled. There you are. Her voice carried the warmth of sunlight, the comfort of familiar stories, the feeling of coming home. Elias froze. The guide star brightened happily. Mira stared. You know it? The elderly woman laughed softly. My dear, I've known that little star longer than either of you have been alive. The answer felt both surprising and somehow completely natural. The woman stood slowly. Her eyes sparkled like moonlit water. Wise, kind, ancient, yet full of life. She approached them. The room seemed brighter around her, as though the lighthouse itself welcomed her presence. The woman stopped before Elias, studying him carefully, not judging, simply observing. Then she smiled. So, her eyes softened. The last stargazer has finally arrived. The title no longer startled him. Not after everything. Still, hearing it spoken aloud carried weight, reality, meaning, purpose. You were expecting me? The keeper chuckled. Only for about 300 years. Elias blinked. Mira laughed despite herself. The elderly woman extended her hand. My name is Alara. The name felt important. Ancient somehow. Like a name belonging to stories. Elias shook her hand. Warmth flowed through the contact. Comforting. Familiar. Almost like meeting someone he should already know. Alara gestured toward a table. Tea first. Mira smiled. Always tea. Important discoveries require tea. The keeper seemed completely serious. They sat together near the window. Outside, waves crashed gently against the cliffs. Sunlight danced across the sea. The lighthouse felt peaceful. Safe. A refuge between mysteries. Alara poured tea into delicate cups. Steam curled softly upward. For a few moments, nobody spoke.
Silence felt comfortable, like old friends sharing a quiet afternoon. At last, Elias asked the question lingering in his mind. What is the heart of night? The room grew still, not tense, reverent. Ilara looked toward the ocean, toward the horizon beyond sight. Her expression softened. The heart of night is where the first stories were born. The answer surprised him. Not stars, stories. Ilara continued. Before there were stars, there were stories. Her voice carried quiet certainty. As stories grew, they became dreams. As dreams grew, they became stars. The lighthouse seemed impossibly quiet now. Every word mattered. Every sentence felt ancient, true. The stars aren't simply lights, Ilara said. They are memories, hopes, dreams. Every beautiful story ever shared. Elias listened carefully. The idea felt profound, and somehow right. The keeper sipped her tea, then continued. When enough stories are forgotten, her voice softened. The stars begin returning home. The realization struck him, not because the world was ending, because the world was forgetting. Forgetting dreams, forgetting wonder, forgetting stories. Ilara nodded as though hearing his thoughts. That's why stargazers exist. To remember. The simple answer carried enormous meaning. The room fell quiet. Outside, waves rolled endlessly across the sea. The tiny guide star floated lazily near the window, watching, listening, waiting. Then Ilara stood. She approached a nearby bookshelf, carefully removed an ancient journal, and returned. The cover bore a familiar symbol, a star within a circle. She placed the journal before Elias. The pages opened automatically, stopping near the center. A single illustration filled the parchment. The first observatory. Detailed, beautiful, majestic. Its towers reached toward the heavens. Its lanterns glowed like captured stars. And above it hovered something extraordinary. A doorway, made entirely of light, silver and gold, radiant, magnificent. Elias stared. The gate. Ilara nodded. The gate to the heart of night. Her expression became thoughtful, almost concerned. It has remained closed for thousands of years. The room seemed suddenly smaller, the air heavier, the moment more important. Mira leaned forward. And now? Ilara looked directly at Elias. The keeper's eyes reflected centuries of wisdom, centuries of waiting, centuries of hope. Now she spoke the words both travelers had somehow expected. The gate is beginning to open. Silence followed. Beyond the lighthouse windows, clouds drifted across the sky. The sea sparkled below. The world continued peacefully. Yet something ancient had begun. Something long foretold. Something that could no longer be stopped. The stars were gathering. The gate was awakening. And the journey toward the heart of night had entered its final chapter. The afternoon passed quietly within the lighthouse. Golden sunlight drifted across the floor. The sea shimmered beyond the windows. The gentle rhythm of waves accompanied every conversation. Everything felt peaceful. Yet beneath that peace, anticipation lingered. The gate was opening. The stars were returning. And somewhere beyond the horizon stood the first observatory, waiting for centuries, perhaps longer. Ilara remained by the window, gazing toward the western sea. The tiny silver guide star floated beside her. Its glow had become noticeably brighter, almost as though it sensed the approaching conclusion. Mira studied the ancient journal spread across the table. The illustration of the observatory seemed to shimmer whenever sunlight touched the page. Not moving, not changing, simply alive with memory. Elias sat quietly, thinking. The journey had revealed so much. The forest of echoes, the lantern bridge, the river of forgotten songs, the sleeping clockmaker, the house of remembering. Every place connected, every clue leading toward a single destination, a single truth. At last, Ilara turned from the window. The tide is changing. The keeper smiled softly. It's time. The words settled gently across the room, like the turning of a page, the beginning of a final chapter. The path beyond the lighthouse descended toward hidden cliffs. Few travelers would have noticed it. The narrow trail seemed almost invisible among the rocks. Sea mist drifted across the stone. Seabirds circled overhead. The tiny silver guide star guided them onward. Elara walked with surprising ease despite her age. The wind tugged gently at her blue shawl. Sunlight reflected from the silver pendant around her neck, a pendant remarkably similar to Mira's. Elias noticed, but said nothing. Some questions could wait. The path eventually ended at a secluded cove. Crystal water lapped quietly against pale stone. The sea seemed unusually calm, almost expectant. At the shoreline rested a boat, small, elegant. Its hull appeared carved from silver wood. Tiny constellations decorated its sides. The vessel looked ancient, yet perfectly preserved, waiting, just like everything else. Elara smiled. The starboat. Mira laughed softly. Of course it's called that. The keeper grinned. These stargazers were never very subtle. Together they stepped aboard. The tiny silver guide star floated above the bow. Its glow reflected upon the water. The moment everyone settled, the boat began moving. Without sails, without oars, silently. The sea parted before it. Mist drifted aside. The journey west had begun. The voyage felt dreamlike. The ocean remained calm. Silver clouds drifted overhead. Sunlight gradually softened into evening gold, then amber, then rose. The world seemed painted by a patient artist. Hours passed peacefully. No one felt tired. No one felt hurried. The sea itself seemed determined to carry them gently onward. Eventually, darkness arrived. Stars appeared overhead, though far fewer than before. Yet now Elias noticed something strange. The remaining stars seemed brighter, more vivid, as though preparing for something, gathering strength, gathering purpose. The tiny guide star brightened in response. Its glow reflected across the waves, creating silver pathways upon the water. Then, a shape emerged from the mist, far ahead, towering, majestic, the first observatory. Elias stood, his breath caught. Nothing could have prepared him. The observatory rose from a small island surrounded by silver cliffs. Ancient towers stretched toward the sky. Countless lanterns glowed from every window. Bridges connected elegant spires. Silver domes reflected moonlight. The entire structure appeared carved from stars and stone. Beautiful, timeless, impossible, and somehow familiar, as though it belonged to every dream he had ever forgotten. Mira stood beside him, speechless. Even Elara seemed moved. The starboat glided toward the island. The observatory grew larger, brighter, more magnificent. Lantern light shimmered across the sea. Thousands of lanterns, perhaps millions, each glowing softly against the night. The sight felt comforting, welcoming, like arriving home after a very long journey. The boat reached a stone dock, silently, gracefully. Waiting attendants stood nearby. At least they appeared to be attendants. Tall figures dressed in silver robes, their faces calm, kind, familiar somehow. Not strangers, not exactly. Elara stepped onto the dock first. The figures bowed respectfully, then turned toward Elias, one by one, every single one, and bowed again. The gesture carried immense respect, ancient respect, the kind reserved for stories and legends. Elias felt slightly overwhelmed. I don't think I deserve that. Elara smiled. That feeling is precisely why you do. The answer lingered pleasantly. Together they entered the observatory. The interior exceeded imagination. Grand halls stretched beneath crystal ceilings. Stars glowed overhead, not painted, not artificial. Actual stars drifted slowly above the corridors. Thousands of lanterns illuminated every room, every staircase, every altar. The building felt alive. Not alive like a person, alive like a story, like a memory, like a dream refusing to fade. The silver-robed figures moved quietly through the halls, tending lanterns, organizing books, recording observations. Their presence felt peaceful, purposeful. One figure approached, a woman with silver eyes and gentle features. She smiled warmly. Welcome home, stargazer. The words surprised Elias. Home? The observatory didn't belong to him. And yet, part of him felt strangely comforted by the greeting. as though some forgotten part of himself recognized the place. The woman gestured toward a vast chamber ahead. The Hall of Dreams awaits. Together they followed. The corridor widened. The lanterns grew brighter. The air shimmered faintly. Then they entered the chamber and stopped. The Hall of Dreams stretched farther than sight. An enormous circular room filled with lanterns. Countless lanterns. Millions, perhaps. Each suspended in the air, floating gently, glowing softly. Different colors, different sizes, different stories. The entire hall resembled a galaxy, a universe made from dreams. Elias stared in awe. What are they? Alara smiled. Every dream ever entrusted to the stars. The answer nearly stole his breath. Every dream, every hope, every wish, every bedtime story, every promise, every moment of wonder, preserved, protected, remembered. The hall shimmered softly around them, lanterns drifting like constellations, stories becoming stars, stars becoming stories, everything connected, everything beautiful. Then something extraordinary happened. One lantern began descending, slowly, gracefully. It floated toward Elias, its glow brighter than all the others, silver, familiar. The lantern stopped before him, hovering gently, waiting. The tiny guide star approached. Its light merged with the lantern. Silver radiance filled the chamber. The lantern opened. Not physically, something deeper. A memory emerged. Ancient, powerful, clear. Elias saw the observatory long ago, thousands of years earlier, its towers shining beneath an ocean of stars. And standing at the highest balcony, a stargazer, watching the sky, protecting the stories, guarding the dreams. The figure slowly turned. Elias froze. The stargazer looked exactly like him. Not similar, not related. Exactly like him. The vision faded. The lantern closed. Silence filled the hall. Mira stared. Alara remained calm, as though she had expected this all along. Elias struggled to speak. What was that? The keeper stepped closer. Her expression carried both sadness and hope. The truth. The chamber seemed quieter now. The lanterns listened. The stars above listened. Everything listened. Alara gently touched the silver lantern. The last star. Her voice softened. It isn't a star at all. Elias felt his heartbeat quicken. The answer had waited since the beginning. The mystery behind every clue, every journey, every dream. Alara looked directly into his eyes. The last star is a memory. Silence. Complete silence. The words echoed through the Hall of Dreams. A memory. Not a light in the sky, not a hidden treasure, a memory. The realization changed everything. Yet before anyone could speak again, the observatory trembled. A deep vibration echoed through its foundations. Lanterns flickered, stars overhead brightened suddenly. The hall filled with silver light. Far above, beyond the crystal ceiling, the sky itself seemed to awaken. The gate was opening. At last. The observatory trembled. Not violently, not with fear, but with awakening. A deep vibration flowed through its ancient foundations, like a giant taking its first breath after a very long sleep. The Hall of Dreams shimmered, millions of lanterns braiding together. Silver light filled the vast chamber. Above, beyond the crystal ceiling, the stars pulsed softly against the night. The gate was opening. At last. Elias stood motionless. The words still echoed through his mind. The last star is a memory. Not a star, not an object, not a place. A memory. Some forgotten piece of the past hidden deep within him. The realization felt both impossible and strangely familiar, as though part of him had always known. The lantern hovering before him glowed brighter. Its silver light expanded. The hall fell silent. Every lantern seemed to pause. Every drifting star seemed to wait. Even time itself felt slower. Patient. Watching. Alara stepped forward. Her eyes reflected the glow. The memory has been waiting. Elias looked toward her. Waiting for what? The keeper smiled gently. For you to remember. The answer settled softly in the air. Simple, yet enormous. The Hall of Dreams brightened once more. The silver lantern slowly opened. Light poured outward. Warm, comforting, familiar. The light touched Elias. And suddenly, the world disappeared. He stood beneath a sky unlike any he had ever seen. Stars filled every corner of darkness. Millions upon millions. Brighter than diamonds. Brighter than moonlight. Brighter than dreams. The sight was breathtaking. A vast ocean of stars stretched endlessly overhead. Not a single one missing. Not a single dark space between them. The sky felt alive, joyful, whole. Elias slowly looked around. The first observatory surrounded him, yet it appeared younger, newer. The stone gleamed. The lanterns shone brilliantly. Everything felt untouched by time. The realization arrived gradually. This was the past. A memory. His memory. Footsteps approached. He turned and froze. A young boy stood nearby, perhaps 10 years old. Dark hair, curious eyes, a familiar face. His own face. The child version of himself. The boy gazed upward at the stars, filled with wonder, filled with awe, filled with possibility. Elias watched silently. The memory unfolded around him. The young boy stood beside another figure, a woman. Kind eyes, warm smile, silver pendant shaped like a star. She knelt beside him, pointing toward the heavens. The child listened carefully, completely captivated. The woman spoke softly, though the wind carried away most of her words. Only fragments remained. Every star, every story. Never forget. The scene felt deeply familiar, painfully familiar. A forgotten dream returning after years of absence. The boy smiled. The woman smiled too. Then she placed a hand over his heart and spoke one final sentence. This time Elias heard every word. Perfectly. Clearly. As though she stood beside him now. The brightest star will always live here. Her hand rested against the boy's chest, against his heart. The world seemed to pause. Something stirred within Elias. A feeling long forgotten. A memory buried beneath years. Beneath ordinary life. Beneath time itself. The woman stood. Moonlight illuminated her face. And for the first time, Elias truly saw her. Recognition struck like lightning. Not because he remembered her, because he had never truly forgotten. His mother. The realization shattered something, or perhaps healed something. Emotion flooded through him. Warm, gentle, overwhelming. The memory continued. The woman hugged the child, held him close, then looked toward the stars. A sadness touched her expression. Not fear, not regret. A farewell. The kind farewell spoken only when someone knows a journey is ending. The boy didn't understand, but Elias did. Now he understood. The memory blurred. Moonlight dissolved into silver. The stars stretched across the sky. The woman smiled one final time, then whispered, "Remember the stories." Everything vanished. Elias gasped softly. The Hall of Dreams returned. Lanterns floated overhead. Silver light shimmered everywhere.
The observatory remained around him, yet tears rested quietly in his eyes. Not sorrow, something gentler, something warmer. Remembrance. The silver lantern drifted back, its purpose fulfilled. The tiny guide star circled him once, its glow brighter than ever. Alara watched quietly. Mira stood nearby. Neither interacted. Some memories deserved silence. Some truths needed space. At last Elias looked up. The answer had revealed itself. The last star. The memory. The forgotten promise. The wonder he had nearly lost. The story he had nearly forgotten. It had lived inside him all along. Safe. Waiting. Patient. The hall responded immediately. Millions of lanterns brightened. The crystal ceiling above became transparent. The night sky appeared overhead, and everyone stared. The stars were moving. Thousands of them. Perhaps millions. Silver streams crossed the heavens. Constellations gently unraveling. Stars traveling together. Returning. Not disappearing. Returning home. The sight was magnificent. Beautiful beyond description. The entire sky seemed alive with motion. Alive with purpose. The stars journeyed westward, toward a single destination, toward the heart of night. The observatory trembled again, more strongly this time. A beam of silver light erupted from its highest tower. It rose into the heavens, connecting sky and earth, connecting stars and stories, connecting memory and dream. The gate had begun opening. Far above, a circle of radiant light appeared among the stars. Huge. Brilliant. Impossible. A doorway made from starlight. Silver. Gold. Blue. Colors beyond naming. The gate. At last. The Hall of Dreams filled with wonder. The silver-robed keepers gathered quietly, watching, smiling. Some wept softly. Others simply stared. The moment they had waited centuries for had arrived. The gate expanded. Slowly. Gracefully. The stars flowed toward it. Like rivers returning to the sea. Like stories returning to their first page. Like dreams returning home. Then something emerged from the light. A figure.
Distant, radiant, standing within the gate itself. The silhouette appeared human, yet more than human. Ancient, timeless. Its form shimmered like living starlight. The hall fell completely silent. The figure looked toward the observatory, toward Elias. The sensation was unmistakable. It knew him, had always known him. The radiant figure raised one hand, not in warning, not in command, in greeting, a welcome, an invitation. The gate widened further. The stars continued gathering. The sky blazed with silver rivers. And deep within the heart of night, something ancient and beautiful was awakening. Something that had slept since the first story was ever told. The gate hung above the observatory, vast, radiant, magnificent. A doorway woven from starlight itself. Silver rivers flowed toward it from every corner of the sky. Millions of stars traveled together. Returning, not fading, not dying, returning home. The Hall of Dreams glowed brighter than ever before. Lanterns floated like galaxies around the chamber. Their warm light mingled with the silver brilliance pouring through the crystal ceiling. Everything felt suspended between worlds, between endings and beginnings, between memory and dream. The radiant figure remained within the gate, watching, waiting. Its presence carried neither fear nor authority, only welcome, only kindness. The feeling settled gently over everyone gathered in the hall. Even the observatory itself seemed calm, peaceful, ready. Ilara stood beside Elias. The keeper's eyes reflected the gate's glow. For a moment, she looked less like an elderly woman and more like something timeless. Someone who had watched centuries pass like seasons. Someone who had always known this day would arrive. The path is open. Her voice barely rose above a whisper, yet every lantern seemed to hear. Every star seemed to listen. Mira stepped closer. The silver pendant around her neck shone brightly. So this is it? Elias nodded slowly. The journey had begun with a letter, a mystery, a disappearing star. Now it had led here, to the edge of something extraordinary. The tiny silver guide star floated between them, its glow stronger than ever, as though preparing for a farewell, or perhaps a reunion. The gate brightened. The radiant figure extended a hand, an invitation, a simple gesture, yet one that seemed to carry the weight of ages. Elias felt warmth spread through his chest. The memory, the last star, the promise he had remembered, the wonder he had nearly forgotten. Everything aligned. Everything made sense. The stars weren't returning because the world was ending. They were returning because a story was completing its cycle. A story older than time. A story that had always been waiting for someone to remember. The crystal ceiling dissolved completely. No barrier remained between the observatory and the sky. A bridge of silver light descended from the gate, touching the highest balcony of the observatory. A pathway. Simple. Beautiful. Waiting. The hall remained silent. No one urged him forward. No one gave instructions. This choice belonged to him alone. The last stargazer. The keeper of the final memory. Elias took a breath, then stepped onto the bridge. The silver light felt solid beneath his feet. Warm. Comforting. Like moonlight made tangible. The tiny guide star followed, floating nearby. Mira smiled softly. Ilara nodded, proud, hopeful. And together, they watched as Elias crossed the bridge toward the gate. The journey lasted no time at all, and forever. The stars surrounded him, millions upon millions. Not distant now, close, beautiful. Each star carried something within it, a story, a dream, a memory. As he passed, fragments drifted gently around him. A child hearing a bedtime story beside a fireplace. A grandmother singing beneath a summer sky. A traveler discovering the ocean for the first time. Friends sharing laughter beneath autumn leaves. Parents comforting frightened children during storms. Tiny moments, ordinary moments, yet each one glowed brighter than gold, brighter than diamonds, brighter than entire galaxies. Because they mattered, because they were remembered. The realization filled Elias with awe. The universe was not built from stars. It was built from stories. At last he reached the gate. The radiant figure stood waiting. Closer now. Clearer. Its appearance constantly shifted. One moment young, the next old. One moment familiar, the next entirely unknown. Every face seemed possible. Every age. Every person. And yet its eyes remained unchanged. Kind. Endlessly kind. The figure smiled. Welcome home, stargazer. The voice felt familiar, like every comforting voice he had ever heard, like every bedtime story ever told, like every dream that had ever helped someone through. The darkness. Elias hesitated. Who are you? The figure's smile deepened. The stars around them brightened. Then came the answer. I am the first story. Silence. gentle, meaningful. The words settled softly within him. Not shocking, not frightening, simply true. The first story gestured toward the world beyond the gate. Come, and Elias stepped free. The heart of night stretched endlessly around him. The sight stole every remaining word. There were no stars here, not exactly. Instead, there were stories, infinite stories, flowing through space like rivers of light. Golden threads, silver pathways, countless glowing streams weaving through darkness. Every story ever told, every story yet to be told. Connected, alive, beautiful. The heart of night was not a place. It was a living library, a living dream, a living memory, the birthplace of wonder itself. Elias slowly turned. The rivers stretched forever, each carrying voices, laughter, songs, hope, love, every beautiful thing shared between people. The first story walked beside him. Its form shimmered gently. Long ago, before stars existed, there were only stories. Its voice echoed softly through the endless light. Stories gave shape to dreams. Dreams gave shape to hope. Hope gave shape to stars. The glowing rivers brightened as it spoke. Entire constellations blossomed within the currents, born from stories, born from imagination, born from wonder. The realization felt overwhelming. The stars were never separate from people, never separate from dreams. They had always been connected, always. The first story continued. Every time someone tells a story, a silver thread appeared. A star is born. A tiny light blossomed nearby, warm, new, beautiful. Every time someone shares hope, another star appeared, then another, thousands forming across the darkness. Every time someone remembers wonder, the universe brightened. The sight filled Elias with joy, pure joy, the kind rarely experienced, the kind often forgotten, the kind hidden within childhood memories and favorite stories. Then the first story became quiet, its expression thoughtful, gentle, almost sad. Yet people forget. The glowing rivers dim slightly, not dramatically, just enough. Busy lives, hard days, worries, fear. The stars around them flickered. The stories become quieter. The sadness felt familiar, human, understandable. The first story smiled again, but they never disappear. 1,000 stars brightened instantly. Hope returned, light returned, wonder returned. Stories wait. The figure looked directly at Elias, just as your memory waited. The last star, the forgotten promise, the memory of his mother. The realization settled warmly within him. Stories never truly vanished. Neither did hope. Neither did wonder. They waited, patiently, for someone to remember. The heart of night shimmered. The rivers of stories flowed endlessly around them. Then the first story stopped walking. Ahead stood something extraordinary. A tree. Massive. Beautiful. Its branches stretched across eternity. Its leaves glowed like stars. Its roots extended through every river of light. Every story connected to it. Every dream flowed through it. The sight was breathtaking. What is it? The first story smiled. The tree of beginnings. The answer felt perfect, natural, true. The ancient tree glowed softly. Its countless leaves shimmered with stories. Past, present, future. Everything connected, everything alive. Then something remarkable happened. One leaf drifted downward, slowly, gracefully. The leaf landed in Elias's hand, warm, golden, light as air. The moment he touched it, a single sentence appeared upon its surface. A message, simple, beautiful, written in silver light. Every ending becomes a new story. Elias smiled. And somewhere far away, beyond the gate, beyond the observatory, beyond the stars themselves, a new dawn began to rise. The time has come. Its voice moved gently through the glowing rivers. No thunder, no command, only calm certainty. Elias nodded. He already knew. The choice had been waiting since the beginning, since the letter, since the first disappearing star, since the moment he had looked upward and wondered why. What must I choose? The first story looked toward the tree. Immediately, the ancient branches brightened. Millions of leaves shimmered together. The heart of night responded, listening, watching, waiting. Then two paths appeared beneath the tree. One path glowed silver, the other gold. Both beautiful, both inviting, both leading toward different futures. The first story gestured toward the silver path. If you choose this path, the silver light expanded. A vision appeared. Elias saw the stars returning completely, every star flowing home to the heart of night. The sky above the world gradually darkened, night becoming deeper, quieter, still beautiful, yet empty. No constellations, no starlight, only darkness and moonlight. People continued living, the world endured, but something subtle faded. Wonder became rarer, dreams quieter, stories less often shared. The vision dissolved, the silver path remained. Then the first story turned toward the golden path. If you choose this one, golden light blossomed, another vision emerged. The returning stars slowed. Instead of remaining in the heart of night, they began traveling outward again, back toward the world. New constellations formed, new stars appeared, brighter than before. The sky became alive with stories once more. Children gaze upward in wonder. Families shared bedtime tales. Dreamers filled notebooks with impossible ideas. Hope spread like lantern light through darkness. The vision faded. The golden path remained. Both choices lingered before him. Both possible. Both real. Elias frowned. The answer seemed obvious, yet something felt incomplete. Why would anyone choose the silver path? The first story smiled. A sad smile. A wise smile. Because stories require remembering. The rivers around them dimmed slightly. To keep the stars shining, people must continue sharing wonder. The first story touched one of the glowing branches. If the golden path is chosen, the stars will return. The tree brightened. But eventually they may begin fading again. People may forget again. The cycle may repeat. Elias understood. The stars could not be protected forever. Neither could stories. Neither could hope. They survived only when people chose them. Every generation, every age, every day. The first story nodded, as though hearing his thoughts. The silver path ends the cycle. The heart of night glowed softly. The golden path continues it. The realization settled within him. Neither path was wrong. One offered certainty. The other offered possibility. One offered an ending. The other offered a beginning. The ancient tree shimmered. Millions of leaves rustled softly. The sound resembled pages turning, stories waiting to be written. The first story became silent. The choice belonged entirely to Elias, the last stargazer, the keeper of the last memory, the bearer of the last star. Elias closed his eyes and remembered. He remembered Moonhaven, the harbor at sunrise, the bakery, the library, the quiet kindness of ordinary people. He remembered the forest of echoes, the bridge of silver lanterns, the river of forgotten songs, the house of remembering, the lighthouse beyond the mist, the observatory, the dreams, the lanterns, the stories. Most of all, he remembered his mother, her smile beneath a sky full of stars, her voice saying, "The brightest star will always live here." A hand over his heart, a promise, a memory, a story. When Elias opened his eyes again, he was smiling. The answer had arrived, not through logic, not through certainty, through hope. He stepped forward, toward the golden path. The moment his foot touched the light, the entire heart of night awakened. The tree of beginnings blazed with radiance. Rivers of stories erupted across the darkness. Billions of stars brightened simultaneously. The first story smiled, proud, joyful. The choice had been made. Not an ending, a beginning. Always a beginning. The golden path expanded. Light flowed through every branch of the tree. Every leaf glowed.
Every story showed, every dream awakened. Then the stars began moving, not inward, outward, back toward the world, back toward waiting skies, back toward dreamers, back toward storytellers, back toward children falling asleep beneath blankets, while someone read them a bedtime story. The heart of night filled with laughter, with music, with hope. The universe itself seemed to exhale, relieved, joyful, alive. And somewhere far away, beneath the night sky of a small
Coastal town called Moonhaven, a child looked upward and noticed something extraordinary. A new star had appeared, then another, then another. The stars were returning. Part 15, The Return of the Stars. The moment Elias chose the golden path, the heart of night erupted into brilliance. Light flowed through every river of stories. Every branch of the tree of beginnings shimmered with life. Billions of stars awakened simultaneously. Across the endless darkness, constellations blazed into existence. New stars were being born, not from fire, not from dust, but from stories, from hope, from dreams remembered. The sight was more beautiful than anything Elias had ever imagined. Silver and gold currents flowed through the cosmos. The universe itself seemed alive with celebration. The first story stood beside him, watching quietly. Its ever-changing face reflected the light of countless stars. For the first time, Elias noticed something different. The figure appeared lighter, almost transparent, like morning mist touched by sunlight. The realization stirred concern. The first story noticed and smiled. "You see it?" Elias nodded slowly. "What's happening?" The ancient being looked toward the glowing horizon. "The story is ending." The words were spoken gently, without sadness, without fear. Yet they struck Elias deeply. The first story had guided him here, had shown him the heart of night, had protected the stars for longer than imagination could measure. The thought of losing it felt impossible. The figure placed a hand upon the trunk of the tree of beginnings. Silver light flowed through its fingers. Every story must eventually become part of another. The answer carried familiar meaning, the same truth written upon the golden leaf. Every ending becomes a new story. Elias looked toward the endless rivers. "Will you disappear?" The first story laughed softly, a warm, comforting sound. "No." The stars around them brightened. "I will simply become part of what comes next." The answer felt right. The heart of night was not a place where things ended. It was a place where things transformed, where endings became beginnings, where memories became stars, where stories continued forever. The tree rustled softly. Millions of glowing leaves danced upon unseen wings. Then one by one they began drifting downward. The sight resembled golden snow. Beautiful, gentle, peaceful. Each falling leaf transformed into a tiny star, and each star joined the countless others flowing toward the world. The return had begun. Far below, far beyond the gate, far beyond the observatory, the night sky changed. Across oceans, across mountains, across deserts and forests, people looked upward and noticed. A fisherman sailing beneath moonlight paused at the sight of a new constellation. A grandmother sitting beside a fireplace smiled as a familiar star returned to its place. A young boy peering through his bedroom window gasped with wonder. An elderly woman walking beneath autumn trees whispered an old story she had nearly forgotten. Everywhere, people looked upward and remembered. Not all at once, not completely, but enough. Enough for hope, enough for wonder, enough for the stars. Within the heart of night, the first story led Elias toward a hill overlooking the glowing rivers. The view stretched endlessly. Silver pathways, golden currents, infinite constellations. The universe flowing like music. For a while they simply sat together, watching. No words necessary. Some moments were too beautiful for conversation. Eventually the first story spoke. "There is one final thing you must see." Elias turned. The ancient figure pointed toward the horizon. At first he saw only light. Then shapes emerged. People. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. Walking slowly through the glowing fields. Some carried lanterns, others carried books, others simply smiled. Every face seemed familiar. Not because Elias knew them, because they felt connected. Part of the same story, part of the same journey. As they approached, he realized who they were. The stargazers. Not just those from the observatory. All of them. Every stargazer who had ever lived. Every keeper. Every dreamer. Every storyteller.
generations stretching back through time. Together they crossed the fields of light. Together they approached the tree of beginnings. And as they passed, each one placed a hand upon its trunk, offering a memory, a story, a dream. The tree glowed brighter with every touch. Brighter, 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 until it shone like a second sun. The sight filled Elias with awe. This is beautiful. The first story smiled. Yes. The answer carried centuries of affection, as though this moment had always been cherished. Then Elias noticed someone standing apart.
From the crowd, waiting beneath a branch covered in silver leaves, a woman. Her silver pendant gleamed softly. Her smile felt instantly familiar. His breath caught. The world seemed to grow still. She looked exactly as she had in the memory. Exactly. His mother. For a moment he couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't speak. The years between them vanished. The distance disappeared. Only the moment remained. She smiled warmly. The same smile he remembered. The same kindness. The same comfort. Elias approached slowly, almost afraid the vision might disappear. Yet it remained. Real, gentle, patient. His mother stepped forward, then embraced him. The hug felt warm, safe. Like coming home after a very long journey. Neither spoke for several moments. Neither needed to. At last she pulled back slightly. Her eyes shimmered like starlight. He remembered. The words were simple, yet they carried everything. Elias nodded. Emotion tightened his throat. I almost forgot. She touched his cheek gently. But you didn't. The answer held no judgment. Only love. Only understanding. The tree glowed softly behind them. The rivers of stories continued flowing. The stars continued returning. Everything felt peaceful. Whole. His mother smiled once more. The stories will need you now. Elias looked toward the sky, toward the stars, toward the world beyond the gate, the world where dreams were still being dreamed, where stories were still being told, where children still listened to bedtime tales before sleep. He understood. The work wasn't finished. It was only beginning. His mother followed his gaze. The brightest star still lives here. Once again, she placed her hand over his heart, exactly as she had long ago. Exactly as she had in the memory. Warmth spread through him. The last star. The final memory. The promise. The story. Everything connected. Everything complete. Then the wind stirred gently. The silver leaves rustled. The light around her brightened. Softly. Beautifully. Like dawn approaching. Elias understood. The farewell had arrived. Not an ending. A beginning. Always a beginning. His mother smiled, proud, peaceful, and slowly became part of the light, part of the stars, part of the stories, part of everything. The heart of night shimmered around him, and far away, beyond the gate, the first light of dawn touched the world. Part 16, Dawn over Moonhaven. The light lingered long after his mother was gone. Not empty, not sorrowful, warm, gentle, like the final notes of a beautiful song continuing to echo after the music had ended. Elias stood beneath the tree of beginnings. Silver leaves drifted softly through the glowing air. Around him, the heart of night shimmered with life. The rivers of stories flowed endlessly. The stars continued their journey back into the heavens. And somewhere beyond the gate, a new dawn was rising. The first story approached quietly, its form now almost entirely woven from light. Transparent, radiant, beautiful. The stars are returning. Elias nodded. He could feel it, not see it, feel it. Like a heartbeat spreading across the universe. Hope returning. Wonder awakening. Stories finding their way home. The first story smiled. And so must you. The words settled gently within him. Home. Moonhaven. The harbor. The bakery. The library. The quiet streets he had once believed ordinary. How strange. The journey had taken him across impossible landscapes, beyond forgotten forests, across rivers of memory, into the birthplace of stars themselves. Yet now the thought of home filled him with happiness, because he finally understood something. Ordinary places were never truly ordinary. Every town contained stories. Every street held memories.
Every person carried entire constellations within them. The first story extended a hand. A single silver leaf rested upon its palm, the same leaf that had fallen from the tree, the leaf bearing the message. Every ending becomes a new story. This belongs to you. Elias accepted it carefully. The leaf felt warm, alive, a reminder, a promise. The first story smiled deeper. Remember. Then the light around it brightened. The stars overhead blazed. The rivers of stories shimmered. And slowly, gracefully, the first story became part of the heart of night. Its form dissolved into countless tiny lights. Those lights rose into the glowing heavens, joining the stars, joining the stories, joining eternity. Gone, yet not gone. Everywhere. Always. Elias stood alone beneath the tree, yet he did not feel alone. Not anymore. Not ever again. The gate opened before him. Silver light stretched outward. A path home. The tiny guide star appeared beside him once more. Its
Slow, gentle, familiar, faithful. The little star had guided him from the beginning, through every mystery, through every dream, through every impossible wonder. Together they crossed the bridge of light, back toward the observatory, back toward the world, back toward home. The Hall of Dreams greeted him with warmth. Millions of lanterns floated peacefully overhead. The silver-robed keepers watched quietly, smiling. Mira stood near the center of the hall. The moment she saw him, relief crossed her face, followed immediately by curiosity, then amusement. "You were gone for 5 minutes." Elias laughed. The sound surprised him. Light, free, happy. It felt much longer. Alara smiled knowingly. Those are usually the important journeys. The observatory felt different now. Not because it had changed, because he had. The lantern seemed brighter, the stars closer, the stories deeper. Everything carried meaning. Everything connected. The gate above the observatory slowly began closing. Not disappearing, simply resting. Its purpose fulfilled. For now. The stars continued flowing outward, returning to their places, returning to the skies of the world, returning to dreamers, returning to storytellers, returning home. The journey back to Moonhaven felt peaceful. No urgency remained. No mystery demanded solving. Only the quiet comfort of returning. The starboat carried them across calm seas. Silver dawn spread across the horizon. The sky brightened gradually. Blue replacing black, gold replacing silver. And overhead, the stars remained. More stars than anyone had seen in generations. Brilliant, beautiful, alive. New constellations stretched across the heavens. Stories reborn. Dreams renewed. The world looked different beneath them. More hopeful somehow. The tiny guide star drifted beside the boat, its glow slowly fading. Not disappearing, simply becoming part of the sky. Part of the countless stars above. When the harbor of Moonhaven finally appeared, Elias felt something unexpected. Gratitude. Simple gratitude. For home. For stories. For ordinary mornings. For second chances. The town remained unchanged. Fishing boats bobbed gently in the harbor. Bakery ovens filled the air with warm scents. Shopkeepers prepared for the day. Children hurried through narrow streets. Life continued. Beautiful in its simplicity. Beautiful because it mattered. The starboat touched the dock. Silently. Gracefully. The journey was complete. Or perhaps beginning. Mira stepped onto the pier first. The traveler looked toward the road leading out of town. Toward future adventures. Future mysteries. Future stories. She smiled. "I suppose this is goodbye." Elias looked at her. The friend who had appeared when he needed guidance. The traveler who always seemed one step ahead. The companion who had believed in him long before he believed in himself. "Will I see you again?"
Mira laughed softly. The morning sun caught the silver pendant around her neck. Oh, definitely. The answer felt reassuring, comforting, certain. She adjusted her satchel, then started walking. After several steps, she turned and called back. Try not to ignore any mysterious letters. Then she disappeared into the waking town. Elias laughed. Some things would never change. Days passed, then weeks, then months. Moonhaven flourished beneath its renewed sky. The stars shone brighter than ever. People spent more evenings outdoors. Families gathered beneath constellations. Children invented stories about the new stars. Grandparents shared forgotten tales. Something had changed. Not dramatically, not magically. Simply enough. Enough to matter. Wonder had returned, and with it came stories. Lots of stories. Elias found himself telling them often. At the library, at the harbor, at the bakery, anywhere people gathered. He shared tales of courage, of hope, of dreams, of stars. Not every detail. Some mysteries remained sacred, but enough. Enough to inspire, enough to remind people, enough to keep the stars shining. Years later, people would still speak about the storyteller of Moonhaven, the man who could make entire rooms fall silent, the man whose stories made people remember things they thought they had forgotten. Wonder, hope, dreams, the important things. And on clear nights, after every story had been told and every lantern extinguished, Elias would walk to the cliffs overlooking the sea. He would sit quietly, watching the stars, listening to the waves, remembering, always remembering. And sometimes, very rarely, one star would shine brighter than all the others. A familiar silver light, gentle, patient, watching. The tiny guide star, still there, still shining, still reminding him of a truth older than time itself. That stories matter, that hope matters, that wonder matters, and that somewhere beyond the stars, beyond the gate, beyond the heart of night itself, end screen CTA. As tonight's story
comes to a close, let your eyes grow heavy and your mind drift peacefully into sleep. If this story brought you comfort, relaxation, or a little bit of wonder, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Nightfall Sleep Stories. Every subscription helps us create more calming bedtime stories, peaceful sleep journeys, and relaxing nighttime adventures for dreamers around the world. Before you fall asleep, tell us in the comments, which part of Elias's journey was your favorite? Bell subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new sleep story designed to help you relax, unwind, and drift into deep, peaceful sleep. Until our next bedtime adventure, close your eyes, take a slow breath, follow the stars, and let your dreams begin. Good night, sleep well, and we'll meet again in the next story on Nightfall Sleep Stories.